We have some people coming. We did have it originally in classroom 2, and we moved to classroom 1 because it's just a bigger venue. So hopefully those others will join us soon. My name is Donna, and I work here at Los Robles Hospital. And we are so happy that you're here for this first Clinical Excellence Collaborative with all of our community. It's really awesome to see so many people. And just in case you were wondering who is here, it's Ventura County Medical Center, Mercy Southwest in Bakersfield, Valley Presbyterian Hospital, Cedars-Sinai, Cottage Santa Barbara, Community Memorial, San Gabriel Valley, Queen of the Valley, Olive View, Eminent Health, Keratin, and Los Robles employees. There you go. That was great. So in front of you, you all have your own packet. The main one you want to know is the agendas on the top. Course eval and the post-test is stapled to it. Those 2 papers need to be turned in. If you're a non-HCA employee, I have your certificates already created. So when you hand me the 2 papers, I will hand you a certificate. If you are a Los Robles or West Hills employee, you have to do it through HealthStream. That's how you get your certificate. Okay, so moving on, bathrooms, that's always important. If you go out this door right here, and they're just right here around the corner, if that's full, you can go back to this lobby, turn left, don't go out the doors, but if you turn left again, you'll see there's other bathrooms. So there's 2 bathrooms on this floor close by. We are filming, and we're going to hopefully get you the video of our 2 wonderful speakers over there, Kelly and Terry, and you can get your refresher points later on. So we'll look to Prolacta for guidance on that. And we'd like to, of course, thank Prolacta, our double Amy's over there in the corner. Yes. You help sponsor this and make this all possible today. And the person you don't see, but her name is Catherine Hong. She was the one that created the site to email blast everybody and keep everything in check. So thank goodness to Catherine. She's not here with us today, but we are grateful for her. So I'm just going to give you the bios on both of our speakers at this time, so that way we can just move forward. And our first speaker is Terry Johnson. And in case you didn't know, she is the keynote speaker at the NAN conference coming up in Georgia. Georgia has come to California. Okay, so Terry's clinical experiences included the NICU, special care and normal newborn nursery, as well as developmental follow-up services. She's a nationally known speaker and educator, and Terry was the 2009 recipient of the Braden E. Griffith MD Memorial Lectureship Award from the University of Massachusetts Medical School. She was a 2007 fellow in the Patient Safety Leadership Fellowship Program through the Health Research and Educational Trust and the American Hospital Association. Terry was the 2006 recipient of the National Association of Neonatal Nurses SIG, or Special Interest Group Leadership Award. She's also served on A1's Advisory Committee for Care of the Late Preterm Infant. And she has a plethora of knowledge, and I am honored to say that I have seen her many times at many conferences, and you are in for a beautiful day. Our second speaker is Kelly Hawthorne, and Kelly is the director for the clinical research for the Department of Pediatrics with the Dell Medical School in Austin, Texas. And in addition to authoring over 40 peer-reviewed publications on neonatal and pediatric nutrition, Kelly is a frequent speaker to health professionals in both national and international settings. You should see her CV. Oh, that thing was, oh my gosh, how many have you really written? You probably never counted them. I was starting to count, I lost count. I couldn't count that high. She is also the winner of the 2015 Texas Distinguished Scientist Award from the Texas Academy of Nutrition and Dietitians. And previously, Kelly worked at Baylor College of Medicine in Texas, Children's Hospital in Houston as a registered dietitian and study coordinator. And here's a fun fact. She also is a competitive swing dancer and genre rock music. And she loves spending time on her farm. So welcome. Okay, so we'll start with Terry.
My iced tea, I feel better when I have it here. Good morning. I'm at the age where I have 2 pair of glasses. You'll see which ones work best for you. Or actually work best for me. I think that works. And I'm going to give this a try. It may not be necessary. Let's see. Thank you. Can you hear that? Is that right?
A little louder.
Go louder if we need it. There we go. Yeah, I see it. Louder.
Louder?
Yeah, I have a vocal cord injury, and they rebuilt my vocal folds, and so I can't talk very loud. I always tell people, if you can't hear me, and that's working for you, okay, don't say anything. If you can't hear me and you want to hear me, you have to give me some kind of whatever. So let me see for just a minute. Is this okay? Or
I
is
don't
this
think
okay?
it's on.
I don't think it's on.
It's the same.
You have to get Kelly.
Oh,
there we
okay.
go. Talking. How's that? Is that better?
Yeah.
All right. We'll give it a try. See how it goes. If not, I've also got a hand out. They'll let me know what works for you. So, it is an honor to be here. And what you need to know as attendees today is Kelly and I are honored to be here. I know Amy times 2 over there, both were thrilled to be here. But the person that made this happen is Donna, and I think we need to give her a hand. It doesn't matter what Kelly and I say, and it doesn't matter what they do to make you comfortable if we get here and it's not set up and ready to go and everything working well. So thank you so much. We're finding the clicker. A little bit of getting used to things here. There we go. Okay. I'm going to give you a disclosure statement for this talk. I probably won't do another one the second time because it's the same. I am an employee currently at Prolacta Bioscience. I've been a consultant with them for many, many years. I became an employee not too long ago. And my job title is I am Director of Education and Professional Development. So what I do there, so you understand, is I come out and teach about human milk. I get involved with clinicians on how to use human milk in their hospitals. And I was a safety fellow. So I go out and we talk about safety issues in using human milk, not letting certain things happen in your freezers and things like that. So that's sort of my background. In addition, I teach and have living on a website some documents and presentations from the Advanced Nutrition Health Institute, which is a non-commercial entity providing continuing and medical nursing education. The slide decks you will see me use are my own. They are not from any company. I personally developed them. If you disagree with something in it, it's me. If you like something in it, it's me. Okay? It's without bias. It's no branding, no commercial. You're not going to see any product in it. It meets all the requirements for continuing education to be offered in the state of California. And I'll make no recommendation for any off-label use of a drug, a medical device, or nutritional during my talk. Okay. And objectives are there. Okay? So I'm in a situation right now where I'm working. They've hired someone to look at everyone's slide decks and to see if they meet educational worthiness. And in almost every slide deck I have recently, I have this very same picture. And the person who they hired, whose specialty is looking at people's slide decks, said, why in the world do you have that picture there? And I said, do you work in an NICU or a hospital? No, never been in one as a professional, no, just always a patient. Because this happens every single day. Parents are out, clinicians are out talking back and forth about the patients. It can be the mothers, it can be the babies, whomever. That we're having this dialogue back and forth. And I like to start there because that's where I want my talk, and I've taught a lot with Kelly. She wants her talk to go, where we're giving you some information that will help this conversation get better. How we can talk to families about nutrition, how they can let us know what their concerns are, how clinicians can tell us how they have to work with it in their unit, and we can tell them what the best standards are. This dialogue that exists is very, very important. So, how can the type of nutrition my baby receives affect his brain? We ask parents, are you going to breastfeed, or are you going to bottle feed? What are we going to do? What is the part about doing either one of those that pertains specifically to neurodevelopment, and in this case, neuroprotection? So we'll talk a little bit about that this morning. So the brain is the most highly metabolic organ in the preterm infant and consumes the greatest amount of nutrient resources for its functioning growth. I want Kelly to help me find a way to change rounds in the NICU in the U.S. And I'm going to stop right there because I didn't do a very important thing. How many of you work in the NICU? How many of you work in mother baby? Labor and delivery. Peds, lactation. PT, OT, speech, language. Did I miss anybody? NNPs, RDs. Kelly? Yeah.
I got it.
Yeah.
I'm on it.
I actually have a one of my slides where I have my
I missed
disclosures.
anybody down there? I'm too far in down there. Okay.
On my disclosure statement, I have it about it, and I am not an RD. I absolutely respect them and their entire skill set, but don't be asking me all those little number questions. Yeah, I'm not calculating nothing. So wherever you're working today, what can we do to help with this particular sharing of knowledge that you can go out to the parents about? I'm not a great number woman. I'm a concept person. So, but I have these memorized. I've had them memorized for a decade by now. In the fetal brain, neurons are generated at a rate of 250,000 per minute. 250,000 per minute. Okay. 1.8 million synaptic connections between each neuron takes place every second. The fetal brain is going to increase in size by 5% every 48 hours. Now, my butt may do that. Oh, John is taping. I forgot. And boy, I mean, I've got parts of me that can grow at that rate, but not my brain at this point. Okay? If you look at the cerebral cortex, and I always describe the cortex as where the good stuff is. The good stuff is reading, writing, seeing, thinking, language, cognition, interaction. That's where the stuff that makes us human, if not divine, is. Okay? That area increases from 35 to 41 weeks. Okay? 5 times. And if you work in the NICU, what I want you to remember is that we get really, really frantic about growth when the babies are first coming in and so small and so vulnerable. And then they get on that growth curve, and we know that they're heading out the door. And we may not be as diligent as we should be in those last weeks when the cortex is growing the fastest. And when they're going to have to go home, families go home, and replicate a NICU feeding strategy in their homes. A lot of families take their babies home, and the baby cries when they try to feed them, and they go, I used to do developmental follow-up clinic, developmental follow-up. They say, well, are you feeding them every 3 hours? He doesn't like it. Cries and fusses, so I let him say, okay, they're not going to be the mean people we are in the NICU. We've got to be pushing energy, we've got to be pushing protein. So, and then this is a number every single person can remember. Just think about this, 70% of every calorie that goes into a fetus, preterm, term newborn, goes to brain growth. 70% of what you just had for breakfast probably didn't go to brain growth. I'm just guessing. Not trying to hurt anybody's feelings. But that has always been just an astronomical finding for me. That though knowing that, if you take all that slide and put it together, and then go to rounds and stand at the bedside. And the first thing out of my mouth as a nurse practitioner, if I'm presenting, is this is baby Chloe Smith, day of life 7, his corrected age today is 25, 0. Problem number 1, RDS. Problem number 2, cardiovascular. Problem number 3, infection. Problem number 4, maybe the ductus. Problem number 5, hyperbilirubinemia. And then by the time everybody's sleeping at the bedside, we get down here. Problem number 74, nutrition. Okay, let's talk about nutrition. Let's talk about nutrition. We don't, I think, conceptualize that every other of those problems are going to be solved based on the delivery of nutrition. You'll fix the hyperbilirubinemia, you'll deal with the RDS, you will work through the cardiovascular issues, but every metabolic function is going to be driven by nutrition. And we sometimes don't give it its due diligence. The other thing I just want to say about that is one of the other things we talk about is after somewhere in that mantra that I will rant, I will say his weight today is 650 grams, he's gained 10. That doesn't tell me anything about the most important organ of growing. And so we're getting better and better at looking at other metrics and other mechanisms by which to assess growth. My final soapbox on this slide, won't be my final soapbox, but my final soapbox on this slide, is I think language is important. And so I like to talk about growth, not weight, and I like to talk about nutrition and not feeding. Feeding is putting something in something, that's all it is. Nutrition is a lifelong concept around wellness. And I never heard the word in my house growing up whatsoever. But teaching parents about nutrition early on, this is nutrition, and the fact that it's not so much the feeding, but that, and we're going to measure it by his growth. His growth is going to have multiple parameters, not just one. Okay. We see it a lot in the late preterm infant, which you wouldn't think, but think about it. When do they get there? Week 35. Those late preterm infants, 34, 35, 36 weeks. And that's where you can really get the evidence when you look at the scans and the different studies that have been done, such that at 34 weeks only 53% of term brain volume is replaced. That's a very small period of time to compensate for all that. At 35 weeks, only 2/3 of the brain's weight will be what it will be at term. There's a substantial amount of growth that's going to take place in those last weeks. The other thing that happens early there is going to be myelination. And so there's brain cells, and then there's connections of brain cells. And the way they connect and the way that they send messages and accomplish their tasks is through myelin. Myelin is a lipoprotein. There's some families lately who are really strange about, I want the baby on a low-fat diet, I want the baby, and it's like, no. Babies love fat, they know what to do with it. They use it in their brain. I don't know what to do with it, I don't use it in the right places. They must have it. So this lipoprotein begins to myelate the central nervous system going all the way peripheral. It's going to speed up messages. It's going to make them move faster. It makes them move more correctly, connecting together to allow for more elaborate work. If you subscribe to Stanford, so John doesn't have to chase me all over the place. If you see a little newborn baby, about 5-6 weeks maybe, and suddenly, just one day, you've seen babies, they figure out they have a hand. And they're like, where did that come from? What do I do with this thing? If you get stuck there because you don't have adequate brain growth, that's not going to get you a date or into school later on. It looks really cute when you're 6 weeks old. But what's going to happen, that myelin's going to increase all those. So he's good looking, wow, oh, it's my hand. Oh, I want to pick up. Oh, I want to flip a page. Oh, I'm going to write. So myelin, very important. Lipid proteins, very, very important in these babies. This is a model I just adore. I was first introduced to it by Dr. Sharon Gorgo, who is a world-renowned registered dietitian. And she uses it a lot, Dr. Kelly uses it a lot. It's called the first 1,000 days of life. So if you have 40 weeks of gestation, 365 and 365 days, so you're out the 2 years, you pretty much have the first 1,000 days of life. And if you take a look at the first 1,000 days of life, what you can see, you know, this screen's maybe the kind that absorb the light.
Yes.
Okay, down. So right up here, what you're going to see on this side is all brain growth. All brain growth. It's everything about the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. Can't underrate that. All taking place there. Then, which if you keep following on out here, what you're going to see is you get over here to 60. Okay? This is a flat line. Okay? Flat lines are never good. I'm over 60. My neurologic growth is in a flat line. Okay? I can't remember who I am some days. It's just going red. Over here, it's extraordinary. Extraordinary. And we see such replication of that at different points in life. We don't talk about 2 years old, the brain goes in and cleans things out that you didn't use. Why no one speaks a language in a native vernacular. There's another word they use for that, where it sounds like you're speaking they call it crib language. It's a crib language. So if you hear Spanish in the first 2 years of life, you're going to speak Spanish than someone who hears it after 2 years of life, because the brain says you didn't use it, it's gone. And you can do the vocabulary, and you can do the nouns, the pronouns, all the syntax, but you're going to miss it. The other thing we're talking a lot about now, and I don't know why I'm on this, I need to get off of it, but if I get out here to age 12 to 15, it's now called the new tube. It's the new tube. Okay? The brain does another thing at this age. It goes back and cleans out stuff again that you're not using. And part of that's going to be to shift development into the frontal cortex. Frontal cortex is what makes your teenage boy think he can ride his bicycle on a sidewalk going 900 miles an hour and leap across a trash can, okay? It's still cortex up there in the frontal lobes, not a lot of judgment. So clean out what they have to use there and move that. So we talk about the new two. And so the brain goes back and revisits throughout this time. What they say about these periods, period 2 and the second 2, is there a period for parents to be aware their children need 2 things. They need a lot of sleep. Brain work gets done while you sleep. You lay down brain while you're sleeping. Second thing is protein and great nutrition, imperative. Age 2, of course, in the newborn period, age 2, and again 12 to 15, because they're growing brain tissue at that time. Okay, now that I got into that. At birth, the human infant brain is comparatively underdeveloped. A human fetus would have to undergo a gestational period of 18 to 21 months to be born at a neurologic and cognitive development stage comparable to that of a chimpanzee. Okay? This is a really interesting area of evolutionary biology that I've been fascinated with lately reading. And what it speaks to, there's 2 theories behind it. One is that as we became humans having babies, however that happened, I'm a theologian. I can take science and theology and put them in my mind and they perfectly match. Some people, that's hard for them to do, so don't worry about it. But just be able to do that. But the thought that we begin to walk around and to have births, vaginal births. And what happens is that the pelvic girdle began to shrink in size as you come up on 2 feet. And when that happens, it limits how large the head can be for descending, which is why of all mammals, humans are the ones that do the most postnatal brain growth. Others do in utero brain growth. That's why baby horses, baby cows can get up and take over their world. Or, you know, and so it has to have. The second newer model, it's only about the last year or so, has to do with the idea of at some point in time the baby is growing so fast in the last trimester that the mother metabolically can't keep her metabolism going and the baby's metabolism going at 9 months or 40 weeks. And so she goes into labor. She's exhausted at that point metabolically. I find that one a very interesting concept that her body says, I just can't do it anymore, so you gotta go out there and get supplemented with something, go to the refrigerator, I can't right longer. Yeah. So evolutionary biology. All I mean by that is the way that people have been having babies for as long as we know they haven't. If you were born in bedrock general, okay, millennia ago, all babies were born at or very near term, or they just didn't survive. They were born with labor after ruptured membranes. They were vaginally delivered. This is so important. They remained with their mother. Mammals are meant to have their babies with them. Any animal mammal will fight you if you try and take their baby away. We have babies leaving their mothers, going to Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, down the hall to strangers, the people they met in the waiting room. It's frightening what we do about that. They get exposed to colostrum, they exclusively breastfeed in that model, and that incredible organ, the microbiome, develops. Now remember, we've only had microbiomes for 20 years. That was a joke. Because we tend to think that Jamie Lee Curtis discovered it and did the Activia commercial, and we all went, oh my God, I made a microbiome. And now one, okay? And actually, we've had it forever, we just discovered them. And what we are discovering about them is unbelievable. How important they are for our entire health and wellness, the maturation of our immune system post-delivery. I see a team of what's called a neuro-ophthalmology team. That's a physician group that I spend a lot of time with. And I went and got seen about a week and a half ago talking to them. And one of the doctors, Dr. Luke, was talking to me, says, did you see the paper that just came out? Now, your eyes are all dilated. You have to remember you're in an ophthalmology right now. I haven't seen anything. And he said it's a very fascinating paper about the microbiome of the eye.
Oh.
That our microbiome of the eye is different than our microbiome of the gut. Different than the microbiome of the uterus. It's different than the microbiome everywhere. I have different microorganisms floating on my eye that influence my eye's health. So wherever you are in your career, if you're going to stay in it, you better get settling a lot of knowledge about the microbiome, because I think all our therapeutics in the future will be looking at modulating and treating that. So, and out of all that, the immune system develops and the baby grows. Okay? Now, you and I, who work in today's modern neonatal units, high risk of B, those kinds of things, we're experiencing what they call evolutionary discordance. Okay? It's not that model anymore, and this is real important. This model, in all honesty, is only about 60 years old, one generation. I went back and I looked. Neonatology in the US really broke off from pediatrics and started as a discipline in 1962 after the death of John Patrick Kennedy, President Kennedy's 37-plus week son, who died of RDS. No surfactant, no ventilators, no oxygen. No, we didn't have any of that. So the second thing has to do with the growth of cesarean section. Now, the idea of cutting a baby out of a mother's belly has been around for a long time, Game of Thrones. Okay? There's ways to do this. It seems like they have an idea, but it's not necessarily finessed well. And we didn't finesse cesarean section where we had good outcomes of babies and less morbidity of mothers until the mid-50s. And it had to do with anesthesia. Moms would die of anesthesia, the baby would die of anesthesia because we're giving them generals. Okay, hemorrhage. I was going to, and believe it or not, we didn't have neonatal resuscitation. In the 50s, they held you up by your feet. Hey, do something. Yeah. So literally a 60-year, one generation, we pretty much changed how babies are being born in third world countries, first world countries. Preterm, near-term deliveries, extremely low birth weight, peri-viability, all those categories that we talked about, elective, non-elective cesarean section, labor or not, with or without rupture membranes, hyperhygienic conditions, and I'm not anti-hyperhygienic, nor am I anti-antibiotics, but those both require just scrutiny around your use of them. That we be very careful and use due diligence about when to use them appropriately, how much to use them, and when to stop them. Mother-infant contact is reduced because kids go places and moms go someplace else. Exposure to colostrum will then get reduced, breast milk feeding will get reduced. The microbiome, we're just now learning what some of the effects of that is going to be. Immune system maturation will be different, and the infant's going to grow and develop, and we'll learn what impacts that has on him throughout his life. So, talking a little bit more about that immunologic system. This is a model by Cicadas out of Emory. Dr. Cicadas, neonatologist out there, researcher. And he said, our immune system is so much more elaborate than we understood. he defines now a portion of it called the mucosal immunologic system, saying it's composed of 3 parts and has an awful lot to do with the microbiome. I take the liberty, and I do so very respectfully, that I had skin on this particular, and I'll show you why in a minute as the 4th part of it. But pulmonary GI, 1 tube at week 5 and 6. Little embryos like this, cephalic caudal, it's growing along this way, 1 solid tube. Starting at week 6, going into the 7th week, it's going to go from looking like this to coming together, to turning, rotating, and separating. 1 set of tissue is going to go back. It's going to be the esophagus, the entire GI tract to the tush. The other is going to move forward. What it's going to become is going to be the respiratory passages. You're going to see the larynx, the trachea, main stem bronchi, the lungs, and the alveoli. Same type of tissue. Genitourinary tract, okay, and the skin. All of these organs, you have to remember, have a couple things in common. They're all covered with epithelial cells, so they excrete and absorb, excrete and absorb. They've done that forever. Secondly, what's true about them is that they speak to each other through this network of cytokines and chemokines. So they function as a defensive system for the baby, but they are able to speak to each other. Because I always say, who in the room has a severe food allergy? Where are you? There's always somebody. Oh, I love people are waving over there. Okay, so it's John. His mom just hung him out to dry over there. Can I ask what it is that you eat that makes you ill?
Eggs, tree nuts, bananas, shellfish.
Okay, John is not to go in there. We don't know what foods are there. You can't be in there. You get really, really sick?
Depending on which one, yes.
Which one did you get?
Eggs.
Wow, okay. Did he by chance, instead of eating them and putting them in his stomach, aspirate them into his lungs? No. No. But that tissue is similar and it speaks to each other. And so his first symptoms become respiratory, even though it's in his GI tract. So it's elaborately interconnected. The GI tract we talk about because it's the largest. It's the largest. 70% of your immune system sits in your GI tract. One of the difficulties of doing gut transplant on babies who have gut failure because of necrotizing enterocolitis, long-term TB, and sepsis is that giving organs for a baby, because we have to have some poor baby die to get organs that size. But the second is, the major part of the immune system is in the gut organs. And so regulating the inflammatory processes around rejection of that are quite difficult in that population. It's critical to gut defense, these organs. And at no time is it more important than right after birth. And if you look at this, this is a visual of the gut. I see, I want to go walk and I want to touch every screen. I'm having trouble here. That is your microbiome over here behind the browns. The microbiota are the individual organisms. The microbiome is an organ. My lungs, my alveoli, my gut, my villi, my brain, my neurons. So the microbiota are the organisms, and then the whole thing is called the microbiome. And it sits up against your gut wall. And what's in your gut wall is 4 tunics of tissue that surround and lay on top of each other that can do peristalsis and move things along. And embedded in those that wall, 4 things: arteries, veins, lymph, and the enteric nervous system. Okay? What can happen is that microbiota can move across and invade the gut wall if it's open, get into the arteries and veins, and move throughout the body. Since we're going to talk about the gut-brain axis, how something from here can get to a premature infant's brain, cause inflammation. Okay? The only thing that separates that is a single cell layer barrier of snot. Okay? The only thing that separates it. I'm so impressed with mucus in it. Okay? All right. So if we look at it a little bit, it's defined by the mother and delivered. The microbiome comes from the mom to the baby. In utero, we have in utero microbiomes. The placenta has a microbiome. The amniotic fluid has a microbiome. Boy fetuses and girl fetuses have different microbiomes. We always do that. Okay, right. Okay, good. Defined by the mother, The mode of delivery influences it. The whole idea behind a vaginal delivery was to seed you, to give you the maternal microbiome. And then what maintains it and establishes it are the first feedings. Some bacteria are going to be pro-inflammatory, some are going to be anti-inflammatory, and the whole purpose of the immune system is to modulate that. So I don't get into a pro-inflammatory state where I damage my organ, or I get into a low inflammatory state where microorganisms and diseases can injure my organ. Okay? So what do you have when you have a premature baby? Well, you have this immature baby who has immaturity of every end organ system. So his lungs are immature, his eyes are immature, the gut is immature. He's in a hospital environment. What do we know about the bugs here in a hospital? Oh my God, they're nasty. You can hear them walking down the hall dragging chains. Sometimes on night shift, they're evil. The mode of delivery. Vaginal delivery is the evolutionary model whereby that would be exchanged. So how do we compensate whenever we have other types of delivery? Hypoxic ischemic reperfusion injuries. Now when you hear that term, you tend to think of babies who have encephalopathy from asphyxia delivery. But you have to remember, at every cellular level, in the preterm baby who has RDS and is hypoxic, whose ductus opens and he gets hyperperfused, who has inadequate blood flow, who can't oxygenate well, he is having microscopic continuous hypoxic ischemic reperfusion injuries. And they lead to dysfunction in physiology and also a lot of negative physiology around inflammation. His gut for the very first time is starving in the sense that it's not wet anymore. Remember, when he's in utero, there is no space. There is no space that is not covered by amniotic fluid. It is in his nasal passages, it is in his mouth, it is in his ear, it is surrounding his flesh. He is swallowing it into his lungs, he swallows it to his GI tract, moves it to his genitourinary tract, and puts it right back in. He is immersed in an amniotic fluid environment that is getting him ready to get his microbiome. He may have inflammation, major cause of preterm birth, but he may also have a positive infection, he may have a positive culture. He has had antibiotic exposure, and all of that's going to cause a dysbiotic state, which is a term I'm going to really emphasize to you in a moment. A dysbiotic state in his microbiome. It's not in a symbiotic state. He's developing his immune system, and it's very different in utero and out utero. In utero, when we talk about immunity, we talk about innate immunity. It provides an immediate protection for the baby. He uses it in utero. He will use it in extrauterine life. And he basically is dependent upon the process of inflammation. And inflammation works on the basis of vasodilating, cellular activation to go out to the site, microvascular permeability so they can move through to the tissue and fight the infection or whatever's going on, and alteration of coagulation. But I always tell folks, because I don't have that great a mind, okay? People I work with are geniuses, so I have to paint it down where I can get it. This innate immunity is a lot like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Okay? You know who he is. You've had him. Think of him as the Terminator. Okay? That's telling me I'm done with my talk in 10 minutes. We're already in trouble. I'm not taking my time from Kevin. Okay? Real quick. It has a lot of collateral damage. Remember when it gets done, the buildings are falling down, the cars are crushed, people are dead, every flame and smoke. That's what inflammation does. And those undeveloped organs get BPD, get ROP, get these secondary injuries after that. Okay? If you go over to the other side, adaptive immunity, you develop in the third trimester. Mom sends over her antibodies, starts maturing you, getting you ready for extrauterine life. But our preterm babies left, bolted out of there, they're gone. Okay? So the only place that mom can send those antibodies after preterm delivery, she sends them up the intramerric pathway to her breast milk. Everything she would have given in that third trimester, she has a plan B for. And her plan B is I'm going to send them to human milk. That's why human milk is important. That's why breastfeeding matters. not because of bonding, I mean, it certainly bond, but because survival is actually based on this. This type of immunity, T cells, B cells, memory, very elaborate. George Clooney, okay? Yeah, people smile. I said, I'm sorry, the women in the room went, yeah. George Clooney. Yeah, let me see, Arnold, George. Yeah, George. Okay. All right. At dysbiosis term, and here's the model captured by one of my attendings at the University of Florida. Okay? This is what nature did, was plan human milk, vaginal delivery. And as long as that happens, everything's pretty copacetic. So your term, human milk, vaginal delivery. Once we get into discordance, evolutionary discordance, I have a preterm baby who's growing Proteobacter, intestinal gut immaturity of his immune system function, C-section, antibiotics, lack of enteral feedings. Please pay attention to the next one. Formula feeding first. I am not a girl who has to wail on portafilters. For 30 years of my career, I saved babies with infant formula and portafilters. We don't need to go there, okay? But the whole idea of the model of evolution was human milk first because of the immune system. This and there. Now, you're going to learn from Kelly. She's a rancher. The statement I use is this: everybody eats a hamburger eventually. Right? But you don't need to be eating a hamburger at 24 weeks gestation. And it's not because it's not good, it's because it's not me. It's not self. And I don't know what to do with non-self. So all I'm going to do is get inflamed. My gut's going to get inflamed. Okay? All right. And then into inflammation. He coined the term dysbiosis. It's been in the literature for about almost 7 years now, I think. And people argued back and forth and said, yeah, he might be right, he might not. In March of this year, in Clinics in Perinatology, that's a journal that does come out quarterly, and a whole edition is on one topic. This year's March edition was on necrotizing enterocolitis, real cutting-edge articles of what we've learned about NEC. And you'll see different authors in that. Those, I think there's 12 studies in it. Go back and now they're citing this, saying, yes, this is what we think is the model of what starts the process of NEC. Probably the key event associated with the pathogenesis of NEC and intolerance. Remember, intolerance is the best case of NEC you could ever have. And NEC is the worst case of intolerance you could ever have. And if you look at it that way, that's me on my little thing out here. I live my life out here on either end. Looking at it that way, then it explains all the physiology. What stopped it from getting worse? What kept it from happening more and so on. Okay. This is an interesting study to me about neuro outcome. It just came out in the Journal of Perinatology. Journal of Perinatology, put out by the National Perinatal Association. It's a study of outcomes in Japan. Large group of babies were originally looked at, 30,000. The end turned out to be something like 13,000. They were in NICUs in Japan at less than 32 weeks gestation. Please note, Japan has a matching state of care in neonatal care that we have, if not more exceptional. The reason I'm fascinated by the study is a very homogeneous population too. It's not like our population, which has a lot of other variables in it. And they looked at the different kinds of neurodevelopmental outcome that a baby could have that was detrimental. Cerebral palsy, home oxygen therapy, visual, hearing deficits, and cognitive issues. And I'm not going to show you the whole study. This was their outcome discussion. Nutritional support remained correlated with long-term neurodevelopmental outcomes. Nutrition outcomes, okay, neurologic. The time to establishment of enteral feeding, they looked at it in 5-day increments for all disabilities that they measured, all the ones that they looked at, suggested that the shorter the time to the establishment of full enteral feeding, shorter the time for full enteral feedings, the lower the prevalence of abnormal long-term neurodevelopmental outcomes. We've got to get them eating really soon. Why? Because that gut is permeable. It's an appropriate term to have in your repertoire when we talk about the neonatal gut these days. To talk about it as a leaky gut. What they're talking about is leaking in that level of microbiome or bacteria across the structures so it can invade into the baby's gut. Right. So, human milk, lactating mother, species-specific, human-to-human, nutritional, biologically active product, confers the best health on babies. Moms prepare the microbiome throughout the pregnancy. This is a fascinating study by Rodriguez in 2014, where the symptoms that moms complain about when they're pregnant. I'm constipated, I have reflux, blah. It's all about their microbiome, the gingivitis in the mouth. She's changing her microbiome and growing large amounts of it in order to pass it off to the baby. And then what she's going to do after delivery, okay, is she's going to have her microbiome in her gut wall going to cross through these passages. By the way, these passages are wider open in moms when they're pregnant and lactating, so that food is available to the baby and the microbiome is available. Those spaces between the cells in the gut are wider in gestation. For the same reason, they close over days, opening so things can come in and be available. It's going to come down in her lymph node. It's going to get into something called the intermammary pathway, the gut-breast pathway, memory lane, through the epithelial tissue to the milk microbiota. Human milk has its own microbiome. Mom's contributing on this side. She's going to make that, it's going to go into the interstitial tissue of her breast, get into the ducts, and come out as breast milk, and then a miracle's going to happen. And the miracle is that baby's going to get mom's microbiome in his mouth. His mouth is the other end of the microbiome. Okay? It goes from here to here in all of us. So she takes hers, sends it to that baby, and he starts colonizing and feeding with that microbiome with human milk and the things that are in it. Okay? The second thing that I was just reading about this week, I added this to it, is what we call bacterial imprinting. And that's teaching the baby what bacteria he should be growing, so that he grows the ones that mom can feed with her milk, and that they share a microbiome back and forth. It's called bacterial imprinting. Okay. This is the topic of Thursday that I am so bad, so I'm just going to do the cartoons. This article is available. You don't have to pay for it. It's available to download free. It talks about the gut-brain barrier in the preterm infant. And it says this is what we want in our preterm infant. We want to have a balanced gut microbiota, normal immune system, no gut inflammation, no abnormal gut motility patterns. We want him to have good nutrient assimilation, which means that whatever Kelly orders for him to eat, he's able to use that, pick it up and utilize it. And then he has a normal limbic and normal long-term neurodevelopmental system. And there's this brain, and here's his gut. What we could bring it caught to is this little circle here. That's where the gut lumen is again. There's where the microbiome is. Human milk, fortifier, cow milk formula. What happens here? Micronutrients. And as they interact, some are going to be more protective, and some are going to be less protective. Human milk during this period is more protective to that inner gut wall. Okay? Everybody eats a hamburger eventually, not their first food. The ability of these microorganisms to translocate across a cell, follow up to the brain, and invade what's called the connectome, that those areas around the brain, is now realized. In the NICU, we add to that with things such as behavioral stress, the NICU environment, maternal deprivation, not being with their mothers, receptive pain, visceral pain, post-surgical pain. We get into the blood-brain barrier and its weakness, and then there's the word, dysbiosis. Dysbiosis starts, except this time, the inflammation isn't just here. Where'd it go? It ascended up the blood-brain axis, gut-brain axis, and it's invasive up there. Okay. This is just the physiology, okay? But I want you to remember inflammation is hypermetabolic. Use all your energy that's coming in, brain growth, such things, because you're burning up using the immune system. Again, this is the second cartoon. Second cartoon. Here's my bowel wall. These junctions are wider open in the pregnant woman, the lactating woman, and the new baby. And those microbes that are out there, you can come across, invade the tissue. In the tissue, artery and veins, okay? The enteric nervous system, lymph, gets there and follows and tracks. Okay, more physiology, gets to here. This is called the inflammatory cascade. Tumor necrosis factor alpha, cytokine interleukins, and interferons. And what they're going to do is ramp up inflammation. Okay? So where it's going to ramp it up in is those red areas on the right. There. The thought is, and Dr. Victoria and I are working on this, the thought is that it's the inflamed state that may be responsible for some of the at least softer neurodevelopmental issues we see. Okay? Not a hemorrhage, not a hypoxic ischemic event, but ability to perform at school. Reading, writing, cerebral palsy, because that's some of the things that this inflammation is doing. Okay. All right, so what are you going to do for this baby? Millennium slide. This first originated as a meme. Get him some milk. That boy needs some milk. It should be used for anyone in need of help or self-improvement. I feel that the first order on every order sheet in every NICU should be get him some milk. Okay, just say, check one, get him some milk. And we'll talk about antibiotics later. Human milk is a biologic, multitude of things in it. And what it can do is, in fact, drive down inflammation and drive down oxidative stress. Human milk is a potent anti-inflammatory. It's a modulator of cellular stress from oxidative causes. It's designed that way because babies in utero go from low PO2s to high PO2s with one breath, and they have a lot of oxidative stress. And so mother's milk contains the things that regulate that. She doesn't send them across the utero because the PO2s are low there. You need them when you first take that breath. Put them in your breast milk. Okay. If you look at milk, any given sample, you've got water, micro and macronutrients, things that feed, lactose, lipids, proteins. Kelly mentions this in and out of her different talks as well. And the things called HMOs, human milk oligosaccharides, health maintenance organizations. They drive health maintenance at the cellular level in the baby, and they are abundant and diverse in human milk. And then those HMOs break out into anywhere between, depending on who you talk to that day, 150 to 200 different types of HMOs. This is just some structural information on them. For HMOs, they're composed basically by these 5 sugars, monosaccharides. Some of them are neutral or acidic. We're learning more about how that influences where and how they work. What I want you to see here, though, is that in some mothers produce different volumes and different parts of the oligosaccharides, different types. We call those mothers non-secretors or partial excretors. We're learning more about that. We do know it has to do with their genetic background and their lowest blood typing. But right now, you can find lots of articles out about it. We're still trying to figure out what can we do then, once we know that, to correct the situation for the baby so she supplies more. That's just a map that looks at where you live also seems to have an influence on your oligosaccharides. I was talking to Dr. Nancy White down in San Diego earlier this week. She and I were having an intellectual disagreement over, and her intellect is not this much bigger than my intellect. But I had read, there's some thought that maybe even nutrition, what you eat, where you eat, may have an influence on your HMO types and distribution. There has been recently the formation of and I use that word, of an HMO, a human milk oligosaccharide. It's made from a bovine cow-based lactose structure. It is identical structurally, so it's called a human milk oligosaccharide, but it comes from lactose. It's available in term infant formulas. For years in Europe and somewhat in this country, they've been adding some GOSs, which are galacto-oligosaccharides, fructo-oligosaccharides. If you have questions, Kelly has a great talk on this. She can be a great resource while she's here. But this DSLNAT is the one that's got the NICU people twitching a little bit. It seems like it might have a role more specific around gut tolerance, and if so, that would make it something that might keep NEC prevented. It is not commercially available, and according to the scientists where I work, it's a very difficult one to isolate and work with, which figures it's the one we're really excited about. But there'll be years studying that one looking forward. It's in every form of milk, colostrum to milk, more in preterm, waning as milk matures, okay? And donor human milk, it's abundant. It has to do with the number of donors. So the moms are all contributing their HMOs, they donate the milk. If you get milk from a donor bank that uses 2 or 3 donors, 3 or 4 donors, you're going to have the HMOs of those. If your donor milk comes from a company that uses larger amounts, you're going to have more HMOs. We don't know what that means yet, to be perfectly honest. You just have more because you have more donors. Okay? Oh. Darn, I'm going backwards ahead. I didn't need to go backwards. That was not where I needed to go. That was not where I needed to go. John! I have no food for you because I'm scared to feed you now. See, that's called to have a seizure way of doing it. There it is. Okay. And the thing I want you to know about the donor human milk, they survive pasteurization intact, which doesn't happen with so many of the components of human milk. Really sturdy that way. This is my 2 new slides I got, or stole, or something like that. They function as prebiotics, and Kelly taught me if you have the E, think about energy, and I think about eating. Okay, so a prebiotic is always food. A probiotic, oh, she says, is an organism. It's always a living structure. So when I give a probiotic, I'm giving you a live bug. When I'm giving you a prebiotic, I'm giving you food for the microorganisms that you have. And this is where they come in and fill in those gaps and make those junctions tighter to prevent the translocation. It can go in and then go systemic, even into the neurologic system. These are the 5 activities that they do in the immune system. This is a great article. I think everyone should read this article. It gives you a really good overview of how HMOs work. And then I think it's my last slide. So that dysbiosis, with my little tweak here, here's my little tweaker. He's got that immature gut, he's not eating, hyperfusion, reperfusion injury, infection, inflammation. And then over here, the benefits of human milk, what they do is they modulate it, they bring it back down. Bring that back down. Okay. And when you feed babies that way, it's my last slide, I forgot. We call that immunonutrition. Immunonutrition. The modulation of your immune inflammatory responses in critically ill patients with the use of enteral feedings enriched with immune-enhancing ingredients. And that's what the goal is. Okay? Thank you.